this total, about 1/3 of them were actually in constructions, transport, as well as communication sectors. The years of privatizations have led to savings on the private sector side, on the public sector side, of 161 billion in ringgit Malaysia in terms of public capital expenditure. The fund then has actually been channeled to other essential and urgent services such as education, healthcare, as well as welfare of the people. The privatization process has also reduced the number of government agencies by 50, which has led to the transfer of about 113,000 of public sector employees to the private sector. The current administrations in the new economic model that was recently announced is expected to operate from the year 2011 to 2015 has continued to champion public-private partnership as the way forward. And this time around, there is a lot more emphasis in smart and effective partnership, in the performance of these new entities, as well as in the transparency of the process. Moving on to but going back to the Malaysian Incorporated idea again, the private sector has benefited from this approach with the opportunities, especially for the professional service providers, to have the opportunity to participate in large-scale and complex development, especially in infrastructure developments, that they would never have such chance if it was not for this, what they call a concept. And the Malaysian companies are now capitalizing on these success stories, as well as the experience with the Malaysian Incorporated ideas, and utilizing them as a credential for them to actually promote their services to overseas extensively. And they have actually been gaining jobs through a series of very complex private and public partnerships agreement. And that has actually been one key point as far as professional service providers is concerned. Moving on to the professional service sectors, realizing the impact or the potential of the professional services in national economy, the Malaysian government has set up 2 entities with the prompting of the professional services providers themselves, 2 entities that are complementary to each other. The first one is Professional Service Development Corporation, which is actually responsible for developing the capability as well as capacity of professional service providers. The other one is NAPSEC, which is the National Professional Services Export Council, which is an advisory council to MATRADE, that is actually the Malaysian External Trade Development Corporations. And I'm a member in both of these entities. Before I move further, I must emphasize that I'm a professional architect, I'm a private practitioner, I've never been in public service, and the fact that NAPSEC has nominated me, private practitioners, to represent them in this forum says a lot about the confidence as well as the trust that NAPSEC has in private practitioners. This is my 2nd year as a president of the Malaysian Institute of Architects. In my 1st year as president last year, I have been calling on the government, the industry, and the profession to differentiate our professional services. And I've identified 2 key differentiators, that is in green and in design. And I will cite an example in each to actually illustrate how we have actually partnered with the government to actually promote these 2 sectors as far as professional services is concerned. I've also been very adamant that the approaches to green as well as design development for the professional service providers need to be driven aggressively by the profession themselves. Because for us to expedite the process, for us to leapfrog, the learning curve, because the private sectors have not been involved in prescribing the services in terms of green as well as in design, the learning curve for the public sector will be much steeper than the professionals themselves. So as far as green is concerned, we think there needs to be a transformation as far as the building and construction industry in Malaysia is concerned, so that the sector can actually build up a portfolio as well as credential in green design and construction before we move on to actually export our services beyond Malaysia. And we think the best way to do this is actually to develop a national green building ratings for ourselves. And the professional groups, basically the professional architects and professional engineers, have actually taken it upon ourselves to actually develop this rating without any support initially from anybody at all. So through the dedication as well as commitment by a team of professional and architects and professional engineers, a full-fledged rating for 2 different sectors of the industries were developed, completed by this group in less than 6 months' time. And sensing our enthusiasm as well as commitment to this approach, the government decided to actually launch this as a national green building rating for Malaysia. It was actually launched by a federal minister, and it was actually endorsed by the Prime Minister himself as well. Although the green building rating is very much in line with the green technology policy that was then introduced by the government as the way forward, but realizing that the green building rating needs to be independently managed, especially by an NGO or by a professional group, so that we can actually maintain international credibility, the government has decided and continued to endorse this rating as a profession-driven initiative. And since then has actually endorsed this by endorsing the rating with 2 unprecedented incentives, tax incentives for owners of green buildings that is actually rated or certified by the Green Building Index. I will need to move on probably to the design section maybe later on. I'll pass it on to Stuart first. Stu? Okay. I'll do the design part quickly now at the moment, which is the other component that I've been championing in the last year. I've been arguing to NAPSEC as well as to Matrade that we have a lot of opportunities to actually showcase Malaysian construction industries' capability and expertise in construction and property trade show. But we have never really had the opportunity to actually showcase the design and creative outputs by Malaysia in international prestigious design and creative platforms that will showcase Malaysia as a design and creative nation, and in that aspect brand Malaysia as a creative design country, and thereby adding design value basically in everything that we have actually been doing in all industries at the moment. My argument has, I believe, been convincing, and NAPSEC basically have actually endorsed that event or the idea of the new design economy as the way forward for the professionals group. So with that, we have, Matrade has immediately tweaked their programs and strategized their program to actually meet in intention. And the first initiative that we have actually been taken is actually to exhibit our works at the prestigious Venice Architecture Biennale, the first ever in the history of Malaysian architecture to do so in a 30-year event. Initially, Matrade has actually offered us to do, we have a budget to actually visit the exhibitions, but we have counter-offered Matrade saying that we'll contribute our efforts voluntarily with our own budget as well as support and funding from our individual members to do so. So in 4 months, we managed to actually set up the exhibition, and the exhibition is actually on now in Venice, and it will be exhibited from now until probably the 3rd week of November, and the response to this has been overwhelming. Stuart, I'll leave it to that.
Thank you, Joey. The energy in your voice is symbolic of Malaysia being on the move. So lots is happening there. Well done. Last and not least, we have Ms. Sandra Bro-Ortiz from Colombia. Her company name is Avia Export. She's the general manager there. She's doing something different, as I suggested earlier. I think she's at the cutting edge. She's providing opportunities for SMEs to get into other countries with their products and services. I think there's something exciting happening in China, but I'll let her tell you about that. The 2 questions we've asked her to prepare are, firstly, Sandra, aren't you really operating in what is traditionally regarded as a TPO or state trading company territory? And if that